Hello, everyone. Welcome to May 14th Ansible Community Meeting. My name is Hal. I will be your host today. So the agenda today is a little light. The first item we have here is, again, a request for programmable survey. So uh, issue number 20 within the AWX project, of which the current issue number is around 15,000. So this has been something that's exists since 2017, like almost the inception of the project. Okay. Um, so Seth and I attended Ansible Fest and Summit last week, and yeah, this thing came up a lot. The idea here is essentially um, the ability to present user with a list. Let's see, with options. Uh, and some of these options could be based on previous choices. Um, yeah. Present survey choices depend on prior survey choices. Present user a verified list of parameters, and present people with a list of choices. So, admittedly, I have not used. Oh, I forgot to share my screen. Sorry. Admittedly, I have not used the survey feature within AWX that much, but thanks to David and Seth, I gave it a brief try, right? So currently, it seems like if you go to edit job template, oh, sorry, not edit job template. When you go to job template, there's a survey option, and you're able to add some choices here. So multiple choices, but there's no dependencies between the questions that you answered and the next question that you're going to answer. So for example, right, let's say if I'm asking you to choose AWS, like the example that's listed in the issue here. Oh, sorry, too many browser. Like uh, select AWS, such as chooses like the ability to have uh, subsequent choices be based on your previous question's choice. We don't have anything like that. That's nice and fancy. Um, like it's just every choice, every option is its unique choice here. So for example, I have like there's no way for me to like reference a different choice, right? Um, so I'm assuming that's the biggest ask here, but I'm not 100% sure. There's a so here's what we will I decided to look into this. So I open a forum topic here um to discuss. Wow, people already
They just did too.
yeah. Okay, I literally just posted. Uh anyway, so I opened a project discussion around for the AWX project on the forum called Programmable Survey featuring AWX. Um, so let's bring your use cases here. Help me understand what is actually important to you about this feature. And I'm going to read through the existing comments to try to understand that too. One of the person, FS, pointed me to this project, the Ansible form project. And it seems like it's a UI it's a GUI application that's generates extra var for you based on form inputs. Now, one of the most important things that from this project, by the way, this is an immaculate, it's an awesome open source project. Please check it out. And one of the interesting part about this project that caught my eyes is this YAML schema for defining forms. Now, question, call to action here, I guess, is help us check this out, and let's see if this YAML schema suits our need, and if the idea is just to inject extra vars, we can likely use this schema, right? And let's, yeah.
How it looks like Hank just mentioned this in your forum post.
Yes.
Oh, and he just joined. And he just joined. So I was like, do you use this? Like, what is?
Yeah. What's up, Tonga?
Hey guys.
I got tired of being bothered. I got tired of people asking me for this. We're actually gonna do something about it.
Yeah.
So, do you use form that Ansible form?
Yeah, we use that for let me see, legal team that use instead the access to AWX to perform some task, some extraction of report in some machine. We use Ansible form to also to pin the job template because in the API the job template is are coded with the ID. So yeah, we use it for this kind of task also because Ansible form have a sort of airbag, so you can leave access to some let me say card, let me say, and run to specific team like mapping on LDAP Active Directory, and also access directly without anything touch. So we have a legal team, for example, that have a specific group in Active Directory, and we use it, and they access directly to it instead of AWX.
Would you mind, like, would it be possible for you to give us a demo on how you're using it right now?
And now, no, because it's in production of my company, so I can't show you anything. I can create a demo, for example.
I completely understand. If you are able to create a demo for us, like I just want to understand the specific use cases. What do you like about it? How do you use it? What do you don't like about
the real benefit of Ansible form in terms of AWX is not, let me say, what is my use case. It's simply I don't want to access to AWX. I don't want to learn someone to use it. Also, if you need to click a button, and also I don't want to develop anything in terms of UI. So we use it, but the real advantage of Ansible form is that have native in native let me say interaction and also integration, sorry, with the databases, and also with drop down choice. So you can drop down, choose a selection, and create a dependencies on this drop down. So for example, if I create a deploy machine and I want to select first vCenter, second folder based on the vCenter selection and so on, you can create it.
So when you imagine programmable survey in AWX, this is you're talking about, like, it shouldn't sounds from your use case, right? It seems like it should be an alternative to or something that's in addition to job template, right? That leverages job template underneath rather than as a part of job template launch?
I think to the survey itself, not to the job template itself. So it's a sort of probably is a different section. So
Mhm.
in my mind is I have a survey, so I can choose, for example, in a drop down, and dependent on this drop down, I can choose something else. So and the drop down can be probably dynamically. So for I can cache it or I don't know, but you can, for example, query from a database for retrieve some information, some data center, for example. I want to deploy multiple data center, but I need to choose it. So I have a dynamic drop down with the data center one, B, A, B, C, and select it. For example, retrieve the zone or something similar.
Okay, so let me make sure that I captured this correctly. I understand this correctly. So you want to have the ability to call out to some external, um, like you want to be able to add like arbitrary logic to query additional external API server to
Yeah,
gather information around, um, like the choices, right? The choices shouldn't be hard coded. The
yeah,
choice should be, um, like be able to dynamically being populated.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, that
How
does Ansible
Or
form? Sorry,
should
go ahead.
be, or also
I was
can
going to
be.
say that basically, I think the easiest way to kind of do it is you have a survey answer from question one, and you should basically be able to populate the query that generates the data for question two with the data from question one.
Okay,
Yeah,
So like it'd be like an API call, and you basically put in question one answer in ginger brackets somewhere in the
yeah,
API
yeah.
call,
It's the same.
and then
Yeah,
basically have it basically update it, basically make that API query once they've answered question one.
um, is this something Ansible form can currently do?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
No, this is something that like I want to say I've at least had 7 customers create their own interfaces to basically do on their own.
so we're talking about this project right now, Ansible forms.
Yeah, yeah. With Ansible form, so you can create it. So
So
you have a sort of brackets, so you can
I'm
inject the previous answer to the next answer. So like a survey, but the field is correlated. Let me say for what is correlated.
sorry, I came in late, so I didn't know about that.
oh, yeah. I'll send you the link in a little bit, but it seems like something that it's built by someone. I would love to get in contact with the author to see, like if they're willing to collaborate. So, Tonga, it seems like Ansible form does everything that you want it to. Does it not do something like, why? If that's the case, right? The question I have is why do we want to take? Why do we want to implement this out in AWX then? What doesn't work?
Let me say until I think that the project born 1 year ago. So probably the issue that is referred on GitHub is like 10 years ago. I don't know, but yeah, in the past we don't have anything. Now we have this one. The only, let me say, uh, if you adding new tool in front of AWX, you need to manage a role-based access control and so on. And
Okay,
you have completely, um, uh, uh, it, let me say, this tool is outside the AWX ecosystem, and also if you want to have a dynamic survey or or only simple dynamic survey, for example, dependent answer. the question and answer inside the survey itself, without querying anything outside. Let me say, we don't have anything in AWX. For example, if I want to create a map, so choose the center and choose the folder based on a structure, a map, let me say, or with key and sub key. We can't reference a variable with another variable in a map. So actually, I think that most of the people that push this issue is related to this concern. We can't use expression, let me say, on survey actually, and also we can't query anything outside the AWX. But
Right, but
I don't
like,
know if
so-
this can be a use case, let me say, for AWX.
so the main so just making sure just making sure I capture this correctly. The main reason you wanted to be in AWX is because you wanted to be able to like you don't want to have another application where you have to manage the RBAC for, right?
Yeah.
Like, so the advantage of building it into AWX, one is, I suppose, you don't have to host a second application. The second is you want to be able to piggyback on the current user thing and org that's within the AWX.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Tonga, it will be immensely beneficial for us if you can help if you can demo this in an abstracted way, but like hit all of the points that you like about the project.
Okay, I will try. But
Okay.
you can also see a lot of video on YouTube, I think, because it's quite active, the developer, and I think that you can reach the developer. Generally, I read the code of this project, high level code, let me say, and is a simple Node.js UI. It's not something that is so much difficult to implement, let me say, in Node.js. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Before we move on to the topic, from the topic, anyone else want to speak up about programmable survey?
I mean, I definitely think that some people are looking for that API calls and stuff like that. I think others are just looking for simple logic where they want to say, hey, if they pick, they want to build a VM in AWS, then the next question will ask them, well, where in AWS? Do you want it to be in AWS East, AWS West, stuff like that. Simple logic, like if it's selected this, then it'll show you this as the next question type of.
Chances are, if we were to implement this feature, and yes, we will probably that'll probably be the first step, right? Like a survey that can take previous question into account, and limit and reduce the choices. All right. So please visit please visit programmable survey featuring AWX. This is Ansible form, issue number 5806, and let's talk about it. No promises that we're gonna make any this is disclaimer. This ain't no way promise that we will deliver this feature, but I understand a lot of people in the community, and certainly a lot of our customer too wants this feature. So let's see if we can make something of it. And I want to make sure that we build something that works for everyone. All right. Moving on, David. Before the meeting started, we had a short discussion. Would you mind resume that conversation around credential?
Kind of connected to it, because one of my concerns with like using that upstream option for that's a separate party basically calling API to trigger a job template. is I know that there are quite a few people that use the password option in the survey that's currently in AWX, which then prevents it from showing in plain text in your extra vars and other stuff like that, and it's created closer to a credential in AWX when it's run, which I know a lot of people use. And then that got us on the topics of, well, credentials, and one of my kind of complaints that I've found frustrating oftentimes is trying to limit the way that built-in credential types are trying to limit how you can use and access credentials. And like a lot of credentials don't have injectors, so then you can't actually use them in automation. And a lot of I've ran into that dozens of times where then I have to go make a credential type just to basically replicate the credential type that's already existing, but in a way so then I can have actually access to that credential and use it for automation. And then kind of in a similar vein, one other thing I wanted to bring up that I've run into quite a few times along this line is the dealing with, because it's considered an extra var, and then there's Jinja 2 templating limits that you have to like go in and enable to allow for people to pass extra vars into Jinja templating. And I was gonna throw out there, it would be really nice if we could change this on a per job template level instead of global level, because you guys call out that it's a security risk to enable any, right? And there's been times where I'm like, I really need this on just this one job template.
David, let me pause you right here. I think we rolled through 3 separate things, right? Password.
But they're kind of connected.
I understand kind of a stream of consciousness wise it's connected, but let's talk about this individually, right? So the first one is about Ansible, using Ansible form and using password, right? Currently our survey supports ability to supply passwords in a secure way, question mark. Like we do have password fields, and Alan, how does the password gets passed in if I'm putting it in the survey?
And I didn't quite follow. How does the password get passed in? At what part in the?
So right here, if I create a survey with type password, when I do launch, how does the password gets passed in a safe way?
Are you talking about credentials, or are you talking about the survey? Like these are
survey
different things. Yeah, okay. I mean, has to go in the request data as like the plain text, I recall. But then how does it get passed in? Like at what point in the process? Like it gets passed in decrypted, like in the ultimate like Ansible runner process, like inside of the container, and all that stuff. But then in flight, it's encrypted in the database and then encrypted in flight for like passing it around.
Okay.
That's just a display thing. Like the password has like in the database in extra vars, it has just encrypted gobbledygook, but then that's sanitized for display.
Gotcha. At what point does this get decrypted? Like when we generate private data dir, does it get?
Yes. And then, well, exactly what gets written to disk and what doesn't is another issue.
Gotcha. So it's plain text written to disk, but in our database and in our API output, it's encrypted.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like, if we were to enable the Ansible form to do this safely, right? Like, we probably need to supply a similar mechanism, I guess. But like on the REST API call, I'm assuming that's not encrypted, right? Like when the UI sent it to the backend, this is not encrypted value, right?
No, and actually, okay, this actually relates. I have a pull request that was never merged, where I was trying to do tech debt cleanup with it, and we have a tracking data structure which is called survey passwords, and the idea of this, how it advertises itself, is that it basically saves the locations, the keys in the data that have data that should be encrypted. But this is kind of self-evidently like doesn't make any sense because we really can and should be determining in that data in our internal logic if something is encrypted or not based on the content. So if you think about JSON, you can customize in Python, for instance, a JSON loader and dumper. And what we should do is probably something a little bit more like that, but it doesn't really matter because we have our own utilities. They'll basically loop through all of the content in the data and decrypt it or encrypt it, like at whatever part in the lifecycle process we're talking about. So basically, I was saying we don't need that. So I had to patch up to kind of remove the clunky old data structures around that, where to make it like really clear that we can handle the encrypted data if it has a marker on it. And if you try to break your own surveys by like putting in like the $ encrypted by itself, like I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but I don't think it's an expectation. We have like one reserved string. I don't think you're likely to hit that by accident. But yeah, like there's no real blockers. We could even, it's not even really a problem if you wanted to have like nested, like if you want to have it nested inside of another dictionary or something like that. That should not actually be particularly challenging, even though I don't think that we would support that at this point. But I think that's probably orthogonal to the rest of the dynamic survey ask.
Right. So I think it boils down to like when people provide us with an extra var, giving them a way to denote that, hey, this value should be encrypted and should not be displayed on the API. Like should be sufficient enough, right, to support a relatively safe like dynamic server, like actually at least enable Ansible form to pass us like encrypted value that should be encrypted in a safe way.
Yeah. So at the point of first encryption, you're right how it matters, because like we have to get that plain text in the request data. So then somewhere else in the request data, it's going to have to say like, well, this is what I want you to encrypt.
Yes.
And then that's exactly what the flow would look like.
Yes. Right. David, does that address your first comment?
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. We should at least. Hey, Alan, do you have a ticket filed? Oh, by the way, it will be really appreciated if someone would serialize the discussion that we have on this call back into the forum topic. And David, since you brought up this specific topic, would you mind be the one that posts on the forum, replying to that project discussion?
Yeah, I can try to bring that up.
Thank you very much. And Alan, do you have a you said you had a tech debt item somewhere out there about this. Is it a GitHub issue?
Sorry, I went ahead and linked it in the chat. That's
Thank
a little
you.
old, but if you rebased it, actually probably wouldn't be much impact because not much else around there has changed. Yeah, if you don't have that, it kind of makes it hard to get clarity a little bit about like what we're relying on internally for when what we are encrypting and are decrypting. But really not as complicated as the code wants to make it seem right now.
Gotcha. All right, perfect. All right, David. Now, second topic is around it's annoying that some of our built-in credential doesn't have any injector, which means that you cannot use it and you have to create custom credentials. So a little bit of background story, right? Like the first thing that I did with the AWX project was trying to build custom collection that talks to events cluster management. It's a project that I used to work on before, and like it's a basically talk to Kubernetes API server, right? And I wasn't able to use the Kubernetes credential. And so I have to create a custom credential 100%. Like I've been there, being annoyed by that. Alan, you were about to respond to David earlier about this topic.
I'm just trying to kind of like thumbs up it in chat where I've looked at this. I'm not sure if this is exactly where you're going with it, but we have Python methods that like take in a certain inputs and then return a certain output given a certain credential. And those should be converted to the injectors defined as JSON data, the same as custom credentials.
100%. So like a lot of our credential, like a lot of our custom credential, not custom credential, built-in credential type could have just been injector, right? Like
obviously. And there's like a critical feature I think that we needed. We needed to support something that we didn't yet support in the injectors. I don't honestly remember what it is at this point, but why not? Like we should. That probably is an indicator that there's some general utility in that ability. So,
we can currently inject as environment variable and extra vars. What else?
No, the problem isn't that. It's something about the references. I don't remember exactly because you have to cross-reference things. Like environment variable has to reference a file, things like that. And I think it might also be the format. Like you need to dump JSON data, and we weren't allowing you to do that. We'd only allow like a plain string or something. But I looked into it, and there really wasn't any blockers for that. I think that because we're using Jinja 2 templating, that might mean that the only way to do it would be to add some customizations to it. Ansible core shows its code right there, where the Ansible core has like a million different filters that they apply to Jinja 2 as customizations. That's not a problem. So basically you get like a Python dictionary, and then you do like the up and down character, right? And you pass it to a filter and it just makes it into JSON. And then you could do that where we need to, like in the Google credential, we need to get data and then dump it as JSON. You could just do that in the filters and just copy what a million people in the world already do for Jinja 2 customizations.
Gotcha. So out of the, we have a decent list here. I know a couple of them definitely cannot be injectors. Like the for example, the credential lookup ones, right? Like that's definitely not injector because this is used by us.
Credential lookup is like a whole different category.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
it's not at all doing the same thing.
GitLab, personal. What can you use?
I'd basically say if it's currently technically behaving like it's injecting an environment variable or just a plain old playbook variable, like I don't know. I can see the argument about like not making machine credentials accessible.
Machine credentials are already accessible. Well, so machine
the
special
machine,
one. It's a special one.
Yeah, I was just saying machine credentials themselves aren't accessible in the playbook. But it's like a lot of times where, like you have the one for the AAP one, like I'd love to add in the controller configuration variables into that one. It's just like make it slightly off different, but you can't always use the environment variables.
Like,
But
this
from
is the
there, like a lot of times this stuff is like, is there a problem accessing it in the playbook where it runs? I think how many credentials do we have? What, 26 built in
a
at the
bit,
moment?
a bit. Well, so we need to take an inventory of the credential, right? Which one, like for example, source control, I'm sure this one is not accessible inside of a playbook, but like you might want to do stuff against Git.
Yeah, you can't
so-
even, yeah, that one, you can only, that object you can only assign to projects.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Git module takes certain variables that we could have just go ahead also as injectors so that this can be used in the playbook. Same thing for this, right? The K8s module. This is not usable in a playbook. I want to use this in the playbook. It could be just adding a couple of injector to it. So
Yep.
like no, 100% PRs are welcome. Shouldn't be that bad of a PR for these. Right?
I think it's a checking to make sure it works, since we didn't understand how it worked underneath the hood, the Python stuff.
Yeah. So call to action here is PRs welcome. And tag me as a reviewer if you yeah.
I'm
If
gonna
you
have to
go
drop
up.
in a second. But my last one was the Jinja2 templating from extra vars being a global thing and not something that you can set at the job template level. Because you guys say that it's a security risk, which I'm not denying that it's not, but it's frustrating that it's a global option. So now I have to like not just accept that quote unquote risk at just one job template. I have to accept it for all my AWX job templates instead of saying I accept this risk for just this one because I need this in this one job template because I'm doing some type of automation or requiring some type of thing and I need it to be enabled.
Admittedly, I'm not very familiar with this particular topic. Do you have an example that you can show?
Not offhand. I'd have to try to make one. It's been a while since I ran into it, but I do remember running into this issue, and it's kind of related to the other stuff where we were trying to pass some information into through like extra vars or through a survey or something like that, which made me think of it. And then it was not working, and I was trying to understand why I couldn't get it to work. And then I finally figured out it's because the setting is set to like template or never on default, and I had to set it to always. But then I was like, well, why can I not just allow this at the job template specifically and not in like global?
Okay.
So that's why I wanted to bring it up.
If you can show me a use case that demonstrates this particular pinpoint, I think we can more effectively talk about it.
Yeah, can I ask a
Yeah,
follow-up
okay.
question?
I can try to create it.
I want to clarify what it is you're going for is like you want to template the runtime variables, right? Like we have 3 layers of enabling. I think it's like you can never allow it. You can allow it on the template, or you can allow it the runtime variables, but you can only allow it for the runtime variables for everything in the system at the same time. I think is what you're getting to. Yeah, and I remember this being a thing and people saying, oh, well, we'll see if there's feedback for this if people eventually want this later on. And I think that you've really hit that point there. Yeah, so
Yeah.
how I think it's pretty clear. It's like you give a variable that will then go in the curly brackets. Like you give something in the survey that'll go in the curly brackets in the playbook later on. And then that's not going to work because it's going to be marked as unsafe.
Gotcha.
So The only kind of detraction I have with that is that you got to consider the security envelope around it. But I think that if the job template has the permission to template variables, then the job template admin should probably have the ability to allow people launching the job template to template variables if that's what they choose on it. Yeah, that makes complete sense to me. I just want to.
Yeah. And I do need to drop. I have a meeting I got to get to. But thanks for the conversations. It was really fun.
And thank you for joining us, David. Oh, he left. Yeah.
He usually has someplace. He usually has a meeting at coming up, I think.
So we have 10 more minutes left. So we haven't really given out Spuds Award for a while now, and I would like to recognize one a new contributor to both the forum and the project, Mr. Caleb. Hi, Caleb. Congratulations. You are the recipient of the Angry Spuds Award of Excellence. DM me for shipping information, and I will send Angry Potato Spuds your way.
Okay, cool.
Thanks for helping on the forum. We really for the past couple of weeks, like when we go to the Get Help section, it's like, okay, Caleb got to it before we did. So that was absolutely amazing of you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And one last thing. So in the latest AWX release, you all probably have seen it. Alan Romanger's big refactoring of the RBAC system have dropped. If you have seen any problem, please bring it to our attention. I know there's a couple of them in the GitHub issue. It pops up already, but yeah, like monumental amount of work, Alan.
Yeah, so hopefully it's not giving you trouble yet. I know that we broke migrations at first, and then people seemed to say that it was they were getting through it. So, let us know if you have problems with the current UI, because we're committed to having that work at least for a good long while here.
I'm thinking if we should do minimal upgrade tests, like in our AWX operator CI, like it's like something super simple. Deploy the previous version, upgrade to the current version, right? It will help catch these migration related issues. It will hopefully help catch some migration issues. Would it caught the last migration issue?
Probably not, because that incurs a cost for you to do some additional data loading. And Chris Myers had put in a solution for that very recently, just a few months ago. So as we fixed this, we did put in some regression testing to migration testing that's like in the unit test suite. So it uses like the same PR checks, but it just runs slow is the only kind of drawback to it.
And those migration tests is kind of only useful like one shot, right? Like while you were developing like going forward, this is not gonna migration is not something that like previously existing migration is not something that regresses, right? So as we move forward, does those tests continue to be useful, or?
Well, I think what you need to get is the data from it. And again, these tests are very, very slow because in order for them to run functionally, to be meaningful, they have to run all of the migrations. So my takeaway from using that was actually that I kind of like to break the best test practices. I would rather take everything that that's doing and then make it into a monolithic test, because it goes checkpoint by checkpoint. So it's very interesting. You have a line in the code and it says migrate to this number migration, and then you can do things. So you do things before that, you migrate, and then do things after that. And I think that this still actually, if you make it monolithic, it retains a lot of value, because you can set up some kind of data structure, and then that will still be with you as you keep going. Because the thing that you're trying to check is just that whatever data you put in isn't going to blow up the migration later. So I don't know, I could see if we could kind of like streamline that into like basically have all those tests be a single test. And then as things go on, like that data itself could catch problems. And then if you just add additional things in front of like a particular data migration, then that could still just piggyback onto what exists.
I'm thinking something like, let's say, after a version of AWX releases, right? We deploy it, exercise it with a bunch of tests, capture the data, capture the database backup, and then on the new as a pre-release or PR check, where we do a restore of that snapshot from the previous release version, and then we're gonna do migration, right?
Yeah, data loaders always kind of have some kind of problem maintaining them.
Oh, I was thinking backup and restore. It wasn't thinking like.
But where do you get the initial data from?
A well-exercised environment.
Well, you could maybe leverage import export. That could come into, you don't want to create new tools if there's already something for it.
Right. That's a very good point.
And it might be one of your best chances to get like snapshots that are like pinned to a particular version, because you say you run tests, but those tests are going to be version specific. So like maybe you'd have to have a version of the test corresponding to the old version. But I'm also really happy with the progress of having that migration testing in checks. I would continue to lean on that for the data component, which I don't think would be relevant. You don't need OpenShift specific stuff for that.
Okay. All right. We are about out of times, and thank you everyone for joining. I'm gonna stop the recording. Lots of great discussion.